Hello friends, in this video we are going to discuss some more advanced level Docker questions. First question is, what is Docker Swarm? Docker Swarm is Docker's native open source container orchestration platform that is used to cluster and schedule Docker containers. So in order to manage and cluster your containers, this Docker Swarm is used. And for managing the containers, we can also use this Kubernetes, and mostly Kubernetes is used to manage these containers, but Docker is having its own native platform that supports this feature that is called as Docker Swarm. This Docker Swarm serves the standard Docker API. Any tool that already communicates with Docker daemon can use Swarm to transparently scale to multiple hosts. Next question, what is Docker namespace? A namespace is one of the Linux features, and it is an important concept of containers. So using namespace, we can add a layer of isolation in containers. Docker provides various namespaces in order to stay portable and not affect the underlying host system. So few namespaces supported by Docker, for example, are PID, mount, IPC, user, networks, etc. Next question is, what is Docker machine? Docker machine is a tool that lets you install Docker engine on virtual hosts. These hosts can be managed using Docker machine commands. Docker machine also lets you provision Docker Swarm clusters. Next question. Suppose if you vaguely remember the command that you would like to confirm it, how will you get help on that particular command? So you can answer this question like this. In order to get the help from the Docker, so we have to use docker --help. So this command will list all Docker commands. But if you need help on any specific one of the Docker commandments, then you can use this syntax, docker followed by the command and --help. So this will give the details of only this command, how to use that command. Next question, what platforms does Docker run on? So Docker can run on various Linux administration platforms like Ubuntu, Fedora, RHEL, CentOS, so many are there. Along with this, so it can also run on various cloud platforms like Amazon EC2, Amazon ECS, Google Compute Engine, Microsoft Azure. So this question seems very easy, but it can be tricky. So do some company research before going to the interview and learn on which platforms the company is running the Docker, and make sure that you mention that platform in your answer. Next question, explain how Docker is different from other container technologies. Docker is one of the latest container technologies and has emerged as one of the most popular. So Docker is most popular containerization technology. Built in the cloud era, Docker comes with lot of features that were missing in the older container technologies. So many features are available in Docker compared to the older technologies. And one of the Docker's finest features is that it can run on any infrastructure. So it can run on any infrastructure, be it your host machine or cloud. Through Docker, more applications can now run on older servers, and also allows the process to package and ship programs. So using Docker, we can package our application and we can ship it. So that is the main purpose of this containerization tool. And Docker also has a container hub that acts as a repository for containers which are easy to download and use. That is, you are having Docker hub. In Docker hub, thousands of images are available. So you can download that image and you can create container of that image very easily. Moreover, these containers can also be shared by your application, and we can share the containers. It is also very well documented. That is, Docker is a more mature concept and various documentations are available. So which makes it better than other container technologies. Next question, will cloud overtake the use of containerization? So you can answer for this question like this. Docker containers are gaining popularity, but at the same time, cloud services are also giving a good fight. But in my personal opinion, Docker will never be replaced by cloud. Using cloud services with containers will definitely hype the game. So you have to answer that. We can combine both. So we can use the cloud services along with containerization. So this will provide us more benefits. So organizations need to take their requirements and dependencies into consideration into the picture and decide what's best for them. So most of the companies have integrated Docker with the cloud. That is, both we can use togetherly. Most companies integrate Docker with cloud. So this is the way we can make best out of both the technologies. Next question, which is more suitable for Docker container, stateless or stateful application? So the concept behind stateful application is that they store their data onto the local file system. So if you need to move the application to another machine, then retrieving the data will become more painful. So in stateless applications, we can create one container from our application and we can run the same container with production and other environments. Through the stateless application, we can reuse the same image in different scenarios. It is also easier to scale a stateless application than a stateful application when it comes to Docker containers. So I would honestly prefer to run stateless applications in Docker container rather than stateful. How will you monitor Docker in production? To monitor Docker in production, tools such as Docker stats and Docker events are available. Through these tools, one can get reports on important statistics. Once Docker stats are called with container ID, suppose if you are calling Docker stats with container ID, then it will return the container's CPU and memory usage details. And Docker events provide information about activities that is taking place in the Docker daemon. So some of these events are like attached, commit, rename, destroy, die, and many more. So the next question, explain CMD and entry point in a Docker file. So in a Docker file, both CMD and entry point instructions define which command will be executed while running a container. So CMD commands are ignored by the daemon when there are parameters stated in the Docker run command, while entry point instructions are not ignored. That is, higher priority is given to entry point. So entry point instructions or commands are not ignored, whereas CMD commands are ignored by the daemon. So when there are some other alternative parameters are specified, so CMD commands are ignored. But entry point commands are appended as a command line parameter by treating those as arguments of the command. So for their cooperation, there are some rules. So the Docker file should specify at least one command from CMD or entry point. In your Docker file, you should have at least one command either from CMD or entry point. While using the container as an executable, then entry point needs to be defined. If you are using container as an executable, then you have to define this entry point. So while running the container with an alternative argument, CMD will be overridden. Suppose if you have specified both the CMD and entry point, then CMD will be overridden because highest priority is given to entry point commands. The next question, can a container restart by itself? So generally speaking, the answer is no, because by default, it is set to false. The container restart is set to false. But if you dig deeper, you can answer for this question like this. Yes, it is possible only while using certain Docker defined policies. So you have to define this Docker defined policies while using this Docker run command. So what are these policies? Basically, there are 4 policies available. First one is half. Do not automatically restart the container. And this is default. So by default, containers do not automatically restart on failure. So here, the container restart by itself only when it experiences failures not associated with the user. That is, container will restart on failure. And that failure is not associated with the user. Next policy, unless stopped. Using this policy ensures that a container can restart only when the command is executed to stop it by the user. That is, unless stop means unless the user stops the container by specifying a command, your container will be restarted. Then one more policy is always. Irrespective of the failure or stopping, container always gets restarted in this type of policy. Irrespective of either failure or whether you have stopped, so container will always restart. So the policies can be used along with Docker run command like this, Docker run -dit -restart. Then specify any one policy out of these, either unless stopped or half or on failure or always. Anyone we have to specify followed by container name. If you specified this policy means depending upon this policy, your container will be restarted. But by default, it is half. Next question is, what is memory swap flag? A memory swap flag is a modifier flag that allows the container to write excess memory requirements into a disk when it has used all the available RAM. Suppose container has used all the available RAM, then any excess memory requirements are there, so it will write into the disk. So for this to work, we have to use this -- memory flag to be set. For example, if memory is set to 400 MB, container is having 400 MB, then we have specified memory swap flag of 1 GB, then the container can use the 400 MB of memory, and after using all that memory, it can use a swap of 600 MB. Next question, are you aware of load balancing across containers and hosts? How does it work? So while using Docker service with multiple containers across different hosts, you come across the need to load balance the incoming traffic. So we need to balance the incoming traffic. So what is mean by this load balancing? Load balancing is basically used to balance the incoming traffic across different available healthy containers. That is, if one container crashes, another container should automatically start running and the traffic should be redirected to this new container. Suppose one container is running and suddenly this container crashes, means then load balancing is a feature that automatically restart this new container and it redirect all the traffic to this new container automatically. So this is called as load balancing. So the next question, what is a Docker ignore file? So it is similar to git ignore file. So Docker is having this Docker ignore file, which allows you to mention a list of files or directories which you might want to ignore while building the image. So while creating the image, you want to ignore some files or directories, means those you can specify in this Docker ignore file. So this would definitely reduce the size of image and also help to speed up the Docker build process. Using this feature, the size of the image can be reduced. Before the Docker CLI sends the context to Docker daemon, so it looks for a file named as Docker ignore in the root directory of the context. So first it will look for Docker ignore file and it will check whether something is specified in this ignore file. Suppose if something exists, means then CLI modifies the context to exclude those files and directories that match the patterns specified in it. That is, whatever you have specified in the Docker ignore, CLI modifies the context by excluding those files and directories. So this helps to avoid unnecessarily sending large and sensitive files and directories to the daemon. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe to our channel for more videos.